My parents skipped my wedding just because I married before my perfect sister. Now, the secret of their perfect family is slowly being revealed. My entire life, I've lived in the shadow of my sister Sophia, like a forgotten child in my own family. The favoritism my parents showed her made me feel invisible, as if I didn't even exist in their eyes. From a young age, Sophia was the center of attention. She excelled in everything, from academics to extracurricular activities. Every time she won an award or achieved something great, my parents threw a celebration, filled with pride and admiration. As for me, every time I accomplished something, my parents only gave a quiet acknowledgment and then turned back to talking about Sophia's next achievement. I had longed for a compliment, for a little attention, but all of it seemed to slip away. My efforts were always overshadowed by her perfection. I wasn't as pretty as Sophia, I wasn't tall, and I didn't have the kind of body that everyone seemed to desire. I was just a dull child with average accomplishments. And that difference between us only made me feel like I had no place in my own family. Despite all of this, I kept trying. Not because I expected recognition, but because I wanted to prove to myself that I had value. I worked hard, tried to engage in the activities my parents encouraged, even briefly tried modeling, knowing well that I could never compete with Sophia. But everything I did was ignored. Once, I won an award in a computer science competition and achievement I was very proud of. But when I came home, my parents were too busy talking about Sophia's latest modeling photo shoot. That was when it hit me the hardest. I stayed quiet, smiled, nodded. But deep inside, I felt like I was drowning. I couldn't even express the pain I felt. I had tried so hard for years to earn their love and respect, but I was never good enough. And after all these years, I had come to terms with the fact that I would never be able to compete with my sister in their eyes. I wasn't the perfect daughter. I was just the other one. But no matter how much I tried, I would always be second. My entire life, I have lived in the shadow of my older sister Sophia, like a forgotten child in my own family. The favoritism my parents showed her made me feel invisible, as though I didn't exist in their eyes. From a young age, Sophia was the center of attention. She was always the top achiever in everything, from academics to extracurricular activities. Every time she won an award, my parents would throw a celebration, filled with laughter and pride in their eyes. As for me, whenever I accomplished something, my parents would only give a small smile, then continue to talk about Sophia's next success. I longed for a compliment, for attention, but all my efforts were like water poured on a banana leaf. My accomplishments were overshadowed by her undeniable perfection. I wasn't as beautiful as Sophia, I wasn't tall, and I didn't have the body everyone admired. I was just a plain girl with average achievements. And it was that difference that prevented me from ever having a place in my parents' hearts. Still, I kept trying, not because I expected recognition, but because I wanted to prove to myself that I had value. I worked hard in my studies, participated in the activities my parents encouraged, and even briefly tried my hand at modeling, even though I knew I could never compare to Sophia. But all my efforts were overlooked. One time, I won a prize in a technology competition and achievement I was really proud of. Yet when I got home, my parents only focused on showing off Sophia's beautiful photos from a recent modeling shoot. At that moment, I could only remain silent, hiding the hurt inside, forcing a smile and nodding. But every time it happened, I felt as if my heart was being torn apart. The feeling of being abandoned, of being disregarded, haunted me every night. I wished I could stand up and say everything I felt, but I was just a daughter too weak to face the truth that no matter what I did, I could never surpass Sophia's perfect image in my parents' eyes. And then, one day, I got married. It was a day I had always looked forward to. The day I would step into a new life, away from my family, to start a new chapter. I announced my wedding to my family, but my parents' reaction left me stunned. They weren't joyful. They didn't offer any congratulations. They didn't express any happiness. They just remained silent, and then my mother asked if I was sure about it and whether I needed to improve my appearance before the wedding. I couldn't believe my ears. I suddenly realized that they still saw me through the eyes of a daughter who wasn't perfect. And then, the breaking point came when my parents decided not to attend my wedding. They said they were busy with work and couldn't arrange to come. It felt like a slap to my face. My wedding, such an important moment in my life, wasn't important enough for them to make time for. But what hurt me even more was the absence of my sister, Sophia. We had never been particularly close, but I thought, being family, she would come. After all, we were sisters, weren't we? But no, she didn't come. And deep down, I realized that not only my parents, but my sister as well, didn't see me as part of her life. I was no longer the sister she loved. I was just a secondary figure in her perfect world. I had grown accustomed to being overlooked, but this time I couldn't bear it anymore. The absence of my family, the loneliness on my most important day, made me feel like an open wound, with no one there to soothe it. I had tried for so many years to please them, but now I realized I could no longer live in someone else's shadow. After the wedding, when I tried to reach out to my parents to get an explanation for their absence, their responses only made things worse. When I called, they told me that they hadn't received an invitation, and that's when everything started to fall apart. I was shocked, especially because I had sent both the digital and paper invitations. I even double-checked the guest list and confirmed that they had received their invites, but they insisted they hadn't gotten them. The more I tried to explain, the more they accused me of not properly inviting them. My mom even made it seem like it was my fault for not involving them enough in the planning. It was like they were gaslighting me, twisting everything around to make it seem like I was the one who was wrong, the one who had messed up. I was so confused. How could they act like this? My husband, Di, who had witnessed everything, knew exactly what was going on. He had heard them talking to Sophia about how they couldn't believe I was getting married before her, and how they were upset about it. They had made their feelings clear to him without realizing that he was listening. They were still trying to maintain this ideal family image, where Sophia was always the star, the one they would do anything for. I realized then that their behavior was about more than just this one wedding. It was about the years of favoritism, the years of trying to mold me into something I wasn't, and the years of pretending I wasn't good enough. The more I tried to reach out and understand their feelings, the more they pushed me away. It was painful to see how they continued to favor Sophia, and how they would go to great lengths to protect her image. But what was most heartbreaking was realizing that no matter how much I tried to change myself, to conform to their expectations, I would never be the daughter they truly wanted. Their absence from my wedding wasn't just a missed event, it was the moment I had to confront the harsh truth about our relationship. I was never going to be enough for them. I had spent so many years seeking their approval, trying to please them, but that moment their refusal to even show up to my wedding taught me that I was chasing after something that didn't exist. They didn't love me the way I needed to be loved, and they never would. And as much as it hurt, I realized that I had to stop seeking their approval. The truth was, I wasn't going to change their minds, and I had to accept that I was worthy of love and respect regardless of their opinion. The pain of their absence made it clear that I needed to let go of the fantasy that I could ever be the daughter they wanted, and instead, I needed to focus on finding my own worth outside of their expectations. That day, when I stood at the altar, looking at the empty front row seats where my parents and sister should have been, I felt like the world was collapsing around me. My wedding, the day I had always dreamed about, filled with love, joy, and celebration, turned into one of the most painful moments of my life. As I stood there, surrounded by my friends and Di's family, I couldn't shake the feeling of abandonment. The absence of my family was more than just a missing presence. It was a stark reminder of everything I had endured for years. I had always believed that no matter what happened, my family would be there for me on my wedding day. But they weren't. And as I walked down the aisle, the emptiness in the front row felt like a physical wound that I could not heal. I tried to distract myself from the pain by focusing on the ceremony, but it wasn't easy. I could see the questions in the eyes of my friends and relatives, the ones who knew how important my family was to me. They didn't ask about it directly, but I could feel the weight of their silent sympathy. It was in those quiet moments that the reality set in. My parents had chosen not to be there, and I wasn't sure if I could ever forgive them for that. After the wedding, I called them, hoping to get some answers. But instead of an apology or an explanation, I was met with more excuses. My mother claimed that they never got the invitation, though I had confirmation that they did. I could tell she was lying, but I didn't call her out on it. Instead, I let her words hang in the air, knowing that no matter what I said, I would never get the truth. The more I tried to understand, the more they pushed me away. And when I confronted them, the conversation turned into a blame game. They accused me of being too sensitive, too emotional, as if my pain didn't matter. My father, who had always been distant, didn't say much, but his silence spoke volumes. The worst part wasn't their absence, it was the fact that after all these years, I realized that no matter what I did, no matter how hard I tried to gain their approval, I would never measure up to their expectations. The emptiness I felt on my wedding day wasn't just because they weren't there. It was the realization that I had spent my whole life trying to gain the love and approval of people who were never capable of giving it to me. They didn't value me for who I was, they only valued what they wanted me to be. I used to think that if I just worked harder, if I just changed enough, they would finally love me. But on that day, I learned the painful truth. I would never be good enough for them no matter what. I had spent my life chasing after a love that was never truly mine to receive, and as I stood there, alone in my pain, I knew that I had to stop. I couldn't keep seeking approval from people who had never been there for me. It was time to let go of the illusion that I could change them, that they would suddenly see me the way I had always wanted them to. And for the first time in my life, I felt a strange sense of relief. I didn't need their love to validate me. I had Di, who had been there through it all, who loved me for exactly who I was. That day marked the end of my search for approval from my family. It wasn't easy, but it was the beginning of my freedom. I realized that true happiness comes from within, from accepting myself and letting go of the toxic relationships that have held me back. I no longer needed to carry the weight of their expectations. I was free,